they marched down the streets to recognize the Stonewall events, and that was the first Pride back in 1970. It's not always, getting to wear fun, skimpy outfits or looking your beautimousness, but it actually has to do with the fact that we were segregated, and this was the first time that we stood up for ourselves, and so now we call it Pride Month.
If you're questioning, I just ask folks, what do you want to be called? Most people would want to be called correctly, and if you have to ask them to get it correctly, I don't think they would be offended.
Because even I fit in this binary, him or her, and so therefore you always think, okay, that they're most likely he is going to have a girlfriend, when it's like, I don't have to ask it that way. I can ask it in a general state where then I can let them come out if they want to, or just be like, no, I don't have anybody right now.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, the podcast, episode number 334. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you for making us part of your day. We have such an amazing show for you today celebrating Pride Month and what your office can do to show your support. We welcomed in Ryan and Jen to the show. They have a lot of ideas for you and your teams. It was really, really great. And I would love for you all to look them up after you give this a listen to see what else they're doing in this profession. They are both quite involved at making us better clinicians, and I'm sure you can find a way to see or hear from them again. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes to find the links to access that easier. Next week, we welcome back Dr. Mark Cannon to the show with guest co-host Michelle Hudson. I'm really digging these shows with the guests that Michelle is able to get for us. Her connections with AOSH have been so valuable with the most amazing, smart guests. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed so you don't miss a single one of these episodes. Last Friday, we aired the first episode that really wasn't suitable for work, and I've been dying since then to know what you all thought of it. So please message me your thoughts, Andrew at atale2hygienist.com, and let me know. I'm really trying to bring you things that, whether it might not be everyone that can relate to it, but that many of you can relate to. And there have been things in that group, in that RDH rant group, that had me laughing so freaking hard. It was a topic of discussion for our other groups. It was awesome. And so I can see the value in it for so many people. But at the same time, I know that we've kind of created a sort of expectation for the show, A Tale of Two Hygienists show. And so walking that balance can be really, really tricky. So again, if you have opinions, please send them my way. Don't forget that it's only like a month and a half to RDH Under One Roof. It's the best dental hygiene meeting I've ever been to. It'll be here in Florida in Orlando, July 21st to the 23rd. I'm already hearing that they're running out of rooms in the room block, so make sure that you book now. It should be a big turnout. Of course, it's in Florida. Everyone wants to come to Florida, and you're not going to want to miss all the fun. I'm not sure if this discount code is still active, or honestly, if I should even be giving it out, but I was never told I couldn't. So there might be some spots on the discount code. If you enter Coast Dental, COAST Dental, that's the company that I work for, and you get $75 off tuition. The last time I looked, it worked for a full conference badge, but also that 2-day badge. If you want to let me know if it's still active or not, I'd appreciate it. Again, drop me an email, Andrew at atale2hygienist.com. I would be very thankful for that. Thank you again to our guests today, Ryan and Jen, and to our guest co-host, Stephanie. I hope you enjoy this episode.
A tale of two hygienists.
All right, welcome everyone to the interview portion of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast. Today, we're very excited because we're going to have a roundtable discussion focusing on Pride Month. As we know that June is Pride Month, and we have lots of our patients and our coworkers and our friends that are celebrating. And so what I wanted today, we brought on Ryan and Jen, and Steph is here co-hosting with me again. You know, I wanted to know, like, what are the celebrations that we can all participate in, and how can we celebrate with the people of Sorry, let me fix this real quick, because also this is a thing that I think that I have an issue with saying, because I mess up a lot. LGBTQIA plus is what is listed on the website. But when I was doing the research for this, it's LGBTQ. Tell me more about that. How do we be the most inclusive?
Well, the full acronym is LGBTQIA2S.
2S?
Yes.
I didn't see that on the websites.
Yeah, it stands for two spirits. Or sometimes they might just do two at the end rather than put the S in there. So then there's only one acronym. But yeah, the indigenous culture focuses more on the verb of things rather than the noun. And so an action is more how they communicate in what they do. So that's why they label, I guess, most gay or queer people in the community as two spirits. So you were originally talking about like June, Pride Month. So, and the reason why it occurs in June is because of the Stonewall riots. So the Stonewall riots, Stonewall was a bar/hotel in New York City, and it usually had a transgender and queer community there. And it was one of the few places that actually was friendly to transgender individuals. And it was still considered illegal to be, in a place where there was more than one of you, I guess. I don't know, stupid. But so police officers would riot these or break into these bars. And every time, they would be thrown into jail just for, having a community with each other. And so in June, there was a riot that occurred, and there was so many that were in the LGBT community that they ended up fighting up against the police. And the police then had to barricade themselves within the Stonewall hotel because all of the LGBT people kind of fought up against them. So a year later, they marched down the streets to recognize the Stonewall events. And that was the first Pride back in 1970. So
interesting. I did not know that.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So that's where pride kind of comes from. It's not always, getting to wear fun, skimpy outfits or looking your beautimousness. But it actually has to do with the fact that we were segregated. And this was the first time that we stood up for ourselves. And so now we call it Pride Month for June.
That's
awesome.
What things do you do to celebrate Pride Month?
We, as an office, host a table. So therefore we allow people to come to us and talk to us, especially since then they would be in a comfortable setting. So that way we can talk about oral health or give them free toothbrushes, stuff like that. So that's something that anybody technically can do because they have their own little booths that you can set up there. You can go to a Pride event. Usually they'll have like a parade and you can just show your support. They'll throw candy and stuff like that. I know that's not very hygienic as far as hygiene wise goes, but it's okay. Yes. You're allowed to have a little from time to time.
So what is something that because I work in dental offices, obviously I'm a hygienist too. What are some things that offices can do or businesses can do to show their support for Pride Month?
I'm super liking this idea of having a booth. I never thought of that. I guess it's because I have worked in very conservative Christian-based practices that I just lived out loud in my op. That never thought about asking my employers to support me. Maybe that's also.
And why would you say that you've never thought to ask them to support you?
Ryan, because I'm a woman, and you don't bring attention to yourself in the conservative Missouri part that I live in. But I'm liking this idea of owning and asking for what we should be representative. But what can you do for Pride Month? I'm a guest on this show and I'm learning so much already within the first 10 minutes. Lost for words.
Can I ask a question while you're thinking about your stuff? Because I'm feeling you both have had very different reactions to this. And I feel like someone who's only lived on the West Coast or the East Coast now, you're both in the middle of the state, the country, kind of like in those flyover states, as they say. I feel like flyover states, generally the middle of the country, is very conservative, like you're talking about, Jen. I feel like that's always been what I've heard and what I've known, just very traditional and this and that. but I feel like you both are coming from two different spots. So Ryan, like, why would you feel like Jen has this where I feel like you're a little bit more comfortable being like, hey, this is what I need for my community. This is what I need for my office.
I think a big part of my comfort level has been that I've been with my office for 11 years. So obviously they support me. They know who I am. They know my husband, all that jazz. And I don't necessarily know Jen's situation, but I'm assuming Jen is newer to her office. And so therefore it's like, you don't want to rock the boat too much, but I think that's just of anybody who's newer to starting something. But I mean, when I first started at my practice, I didn't necessarily come out. It wasn't part of the conversation yet. And so I didn't really want that to be part of either one, the hiring process, but two, the firing process, because it wasn't until last year that Lincoln actually passed that you can't be fired for being a part of the LGBTQ community. So, yeah, because in Nebraska, we have two major cities, which is Lincoln and Omaha. And they're the only two cities where you can't be fired or you can't be kicked out of your home for being LGBT. But everywhere else within my state, you can.
Yeah, Missouri is a right to work state as well. And I could have been fired for whatever. And working in a practice that was highly Catholic run dentist, I just try to blend in. And right now I actually don't have an office. I'm temp and I'm at the school. And so I am very open with my colleagues and my students because I'm sure I have some LGBTQ students. I know I have LGBTQ patients that come through at the school there. But yeah, it's the flyover states. I could call them the Bible Belt's the conservative. Yeah, it's completely different than the West Coast and the East Coast.
Yeah.
I have friends that are POCs, and she says that you are lucky in that you can blend in because I am white, and she's absolutely right. And I'm comfortable in my sexuality and living out loud, but I don't try to draw attention to it because I don't want that to be like, oh, that's the gay hygienist. I want like, oh, that's Jen. She's a hygienist. She just happens to be gay. And so that's kind of how it was brought up. My coming out process was ugly, and I try to not let that define me, but it holds me back on some demographics and age groups that I deal with. So I'm a little protective at first until I know that I'm safe to be who I am. And that's probably a normal reaction, I would say, at least the LGBT
in our area. Yes.
In the Midwest, that's a very okay, we can be ourselves. We can let our guard down. I don't have to act straight because I'm not. So I can let them know yeah, this is me. And so.
Did you come out after you had graduated school?
No, I actually came out when I was 20. I was in college. So when I went to hygiene school, I entered at 22. And so I was just open with all my classmates. And I'm sure the teachers knew because, gossip spreads or whatever.
Sure.
But everyone was accepting. But it's not the peers I don't worry about. It's the people, my employers that I would worry about. And I've never had any kickback, but it's because I've let my work stand for itself, right? And get to know my personality, and then you know my personal life. And I wish it didn't have to be like that. I wish I could just do it at the same time, but I just have to be careful because it is a right to work state. They can fire me because I didn't like this, but it was really because we don't want that person working at our practice. So
what do you feel like, sorry, I keep putting you on the spot, but I'm very interested in this. What needs to happen in order for your situation to for you to feel comfortable and not be concerned about the bosses?
I've been very strategic in my career path in the last 4 years. And so I do not, I worked in an HIV clinic recently. So predominantly LGBTQ. That's the only place where I felt from the get-go, I was myself. And so what needs to change? I don't associate with bigotry. If I know, it's just a feeling. I know, I'm not going to put myself in that situation if I feel like I'm going to be met with animosity. I don't know how to describe it. I'm 36, so I've had some practice with this at this point of I just don't feel like that situation is going to work. And I've been wrong. I've been surprised. I temp, so there are some offices I'm like, I'm just gonna not say anything. But as I've been filling in for like maternity leaves and stuff. As I'm getting to know these offices, I'm like, okay, they're low key cool. Let's talk about it. And I feel like things will have to change. We in the LGBTQ have to be comfortable, have those hard conversations, but we have to stand and have these individual conversations with people and let them know, like, we are not out. We're just asking to be treated the same. We are functioning human beings. We just happen to love someone different than you. But that's my personal MO, is just living out loud, but having people judge me on my character. And you're going to see that I'm a good person and I just happen to be gay. So that's how I approach my situation. It's just one conversation at a time.
Ryan, any other suggestions on what needs to change?
Well, I mean, part of it would be changing the laws, obviously, within the U.S., that we would be a protected class. I know that there are some states where we're not. And so in order for someone to feel comfortable or safe, you have to cover those basic hierarchy of needs before they can get to the point of feeling that they can be themselves. So obviously housing, not kicked out, or if you're renting at a place, and then obviously your job, you have to be able to support yourself. So to me, a standard policy for anti-discrimination would be a need, I think, like I said, even for us healthcare workers to sit there and have a conversation with someone who's in their 70s and 80s, and they're like, oh, so what does your wife do? You're like, oh God, do I want to have this conversation coming out? Or do I just say, oh, they work at such and such, they're sweet, oh, I love them.
And you hit the nail on the head. That's something that our straight comrades, they don't understand. Allies, they don't get it. Like, that conversation is the epitome of being out and gay in the community, is that our elders, we are worried about, are we going to offend our elder patients? Are we going to make them uncomfortable and not want to come back for care, even though our skill is top notch? I don't want to make a 70-year-old and 80-year-old uncomfortable, even though we've had this relationship. And that's, you just hit the nail on the head. Like, you want to be yourself, but you don't want to make other people uncomfortable. Y'all don't have to deal with that. You're yourself. It's expected. The man marries a woman marries a man. It's normal conversation for you guys to talk about, oh, he does this or she does that. We get that slight, oh, which way do we go? And we have to judge the character, judge the person. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to lean into it. I'm going to be my gay self today. And sometimes like, no, we're just going to use the word they. And you really want to be
right.
Like, my husband does this and we're planning this trip, or my girlfriend and I are going to go do this. But you have to lean into it. And so you guys you don't have to do that. It's that little that we have to.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like you constantly have this ethics question in your head where it's like, am I supposed to be truthful, or do I protect the patient and the practice by not getting into this conversation in order for the practice to thrive?
Yep. And for the longest
It's
time,
really...
I didn't tell patients that because I was worried about the practice. And my office manager, after years, she's like, I didn't realize you were dealing with that. I'm like, well, because you're straight. And I didn't want my job to be in jeopardy. So yeah, I was with a practice for 8 years after hygiene school. And I only told a handful of super close patients. And that was like after 6 years of being there. And my office manager was shocked. I was like, I'm trying to protect my job and the image in the community. I don't want people talking negatively.
This is just really like opening my eyes to what I take for granted as far as like, I have very simple, not complex conversations with my patients, but from your guys' perspective, those simple conversations are turned into very complex, and there's a lot going on in your head when you're just trying to simply converse with the patient. So anyway, thanks for talking about that. I had no idea.
Absolutely.
What kind of things do we need to be looking out for as if we're being advocates for, let's say, go back to what you were saying, Jen, about like the students that you've encountered. How can we be advocates for LGBTQ members as students? And then also, what are things as clinicians we need to be talking about so that that we're not saying the wrong things to our patients where we don't know if they're a member of the community or not?
So asking, if you're questioning, and Ryan, you can correct me because you're a little more versed in the research than this. I just ask folks, what do you want to be called? If you're like, if they have a nickname listed, you're going to run with that. But if you're, I mean, most people, I would think, would want to be called correctly. And if you have to ask them to get it correctly, I don't think they would be offended. I know I wouldn't be offended. Ryan, what do you think? Is that fair?
Well, yeah, it's no different than how Andrew asked you, do you like to be called Jen or Jennifer? I just don't know which one it is. And so that's no different than, there's no different than the pronouns. You know, if you have a feeling, a lot of the times your feeling usually isn't off. And you can just be like, hey, you know, I just wanted to make sure that I'm respecting your boundaries. Is there a pronoun that you prefer? Or what is it that you like to be called? Stuff like that. And then there's one more thing as a clinician. I tell them that they can get human rights stickers. They're just little equal signs and all that signifies to most people is equal service for all and equal rights. But you can put a little sticker in your window or in a picture, you know, or set it off to the side. And it just lets an LGBT person, when they see that, to be like, okay, I can kind of relax a little bit, let my guard down because this person's on my side, or they kind of have an understanding. And then, of course, the other thing is that obviously since culture is always changing, you know, it doesn't hurt to be like, I don't know what I don't know. So maybe I'll take a class and try to see if there's something new that came out that I'm not aware of yet.
I love that, that equal sign.
I have a little baby sticker in my window. And I put it there so then that way, if I have an LGBT patient come in, they're not out to me. They at least can see that and be like, okay, this is a safe space. I can talk about maybe my medications or HIV. Because sometimes you'll have an HIV patient and they're not wanting to let you know that they have it because they don't want to be stigmatized, or maybe their care jeopardized because of the fact of the disease.
I like that. I really like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, they can relax. When I have an LGBT patient in my chair, I somehow just casually start talking about myself, and you can just tell. Right,
their defense just lowers.
You're one of me. I'm like, yeah. Let's go. Well, it's nice.
And that's the thing, as a practitioner, you're kind of the one in charge, or the one that has the power per se, within that appointment. And so, like with Jen and I, we probably will get that feeling, and then we'll slightly, as she says, lean into it and be like, well, my husband and I, you know, we're going on a vacation, you know, or something like that. And then it instantly, you can just see them kind of resolve and relax, or they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, me and my husband, or me and my boyfriend, we're going to be going to whatever. And it's just a whole different person that you see.
And you asked about the students. I'm going to try not to tear up about this, because this was one reason why I wanted to get into teaching. I've had a couple, not in the LGBT community, but one that is, who after they've graduated, they've reached out to me, and they said they saw me succeeding in this profession, being myself, and that allowed them to feel comfortable living their truth in dentistry. And that is the biggest compliment I've ever gotten. That's happened to me a couple times. And I just continue to say, you have to live out loud. Yes, it is scary. It can be scary, but when you're impacting the people behind you and your peers, I've done my work. I've affected a couple people. I've done. I mean, I want to continue to live out loud, but I've let people see that you can succeed and be yourself in this community where we're predominantly heterosexual. So just continue to be yourself, live your truth. The right person will hear it. Sorry.
Well, and you said too, you were like, you know, I touched 2 people, but you have no idea the ripple effect that has in those people's lives and in their community. So I'm sure it's like way more people that you've affected, you know. Yeah.
I'm going to take this into a different thing that's like really heartfelt, and I feel really bad about asking this next question I have written down.
Let's do it.
So I would like to know some things, some don'ts. What are things that people do all the time? I want to know, like, what else are the morons like myself doing that is absolutely wrong?
I want to go first because I just.
I'm sure there's a lot of them.
You do it.
Do not ask a gay couple whether it's, or whatever LGBT couple, which one's a man, which one's a woman. It's a homosexual relationship. It's not a heterosexual. There's no gender roles. Please. I laugh, but inside I want to punch you in the face because I am in a relationship with a woman on purpose. Okay. So there's my soapbox. I'm going to step down. Ryan, go for it. I'm sure I'm sure you get that too.
Yes, where it's just like, well, we, both yin and yang around each other, just like,
Exactly.
a husband and a wife would.
Exactly. Like every couple
Yeah.
does. So don't ask us about gender roles within our same-sex relationship. Please don't be that person. I'm open to ask a lot of questions, but don't ask me that question.
Well, and then the other one is that we already touched on it, is try not to be too heteronormative, which means that you automatically assume that everyone fits into the man and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend scenario, because even I was talking to my nephew who's 15, and I would assume him to be straight, but at the same time, I shouldn't go up to him and be like, so do you have a girlfriend yet? I could be like, so is there anybody that you're interested in? Because we're constantly then pushing our own agenda onto someone when we have no idea what their preference is, or if we're going to make them feel more insecure now in themselves because they're not fitting the norm that you're wanting to put them in.
Love that.
So that was something that happened this weekend where I stopped myself, because even I fit in this binary, him or her. And so therefore you always think, okay, that they're most likely he is going to have a girlfriend, when it's like, what, I don't have to ask it that way. I can ask it in a general state to where then I can let them come out if they want to, or just be like, no, I don't have anybody right now.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I feel like I need to take one of your courses, Ryan, because I feel like us as clinicians, like when I have a patient in my chair, I want them to be comfortable. I don't want to come across as, making them uncomfortable or like bigoted or anything like that. And I think sometimes, even though we don't intend it, sometimes we come across that way. So I'm just glad that, you offer courses for us to hopefully learn some of this verbiage and ways to ask things that aren't offensive.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, a lot of it's just communication. And then it's okay to be humble within yourself, like Andrew has shown so many times today about just making sure, like, well, I don't know what I don't know. And so if you could inform me, that would be great.
I do actually feel really lucky that I can ask questions for both of you. Jenny, I don't know you nearly as well as my best friend, Ryan, but so, but having people in my life that I can ask questions to and not feel judged, like that is huge for me. Like I'm socially awkward anyway, right? So even talking about a topic that I'm not really comfortable with, or even one that I'm super well versed in, I just sound stupid. So but having a group of people that can embrace me for that is really helpful. So, I mean, I'm grateful for both of you. Okay, so we have a couple more things that we need to talk about before we end the show. And one of those things is I really like the sticker idea. I'm assuming that you just go on Amazon and just get a bunch of stickers somewhere on there. Okay, yep. So we'll try and find
$2.50, like for two.
Okay, we'll find a link on Amazon for you all and put it in the show notes. So the other thing is, as we're celebrating Pride Month, what's one more thing that an office could do to, and it could be really anything to show support?
I think it'd be cool if they had a pride flag out there.
Thank you. I was just gonna say pride flag. I was just thinking, it's like, can we wave our flag? Oh my God. You're the same.
Well, not even like an office, but even like neighbors. Like if they did that, sometimes just seeing that as you're walking by and knowing that they're an ally or supportive of you, kind of makes you feel good in the extent. Because I know this sounds weird, but I got a pride flag, but I still have yet to wave it in our neighborhood. Even though I know that they know we're gay, it's like I don't want them to feel like we're flaunting it. So,
which is interesting.
Haven't put it up.
This is it's such a delicate issue, and I feel like it shouldn't be that way. But yeah. Anyway.
Well, especially when you see in the news where they say "don't say gay," which was the new law that passed in Florida about you can't discuss any gay issues until 4th or 5th grade type thing.
Grade
and it's
below
like,
or something.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you deal then with parents who are raising a child that has, gay parents? Like, you just don't discuss that as the kid's walking into his class or
to the parent teacher conference. Like, you're like we can't.
Thank you for coming.
Exactly.
You people, you.
Over there. I like that pride. Yeah, just go get yourself a flag off Amazon, put it up.
Or maybe we could do some kind of like promotion during Pride Month, and say like in celebration of Pride Month, we're offering like whatever, just
whitening or what? What are we doing?
I don't know, anything, just something that like that shows your support and that your awareness and your recognition of Pride Month.
And
book post.
And they can't see Jen, but Jen has a rainbow bracelet on, and those are the rubber type kind. I'm like, that would be something really simple that you could have in your office, to be like, here, if you want a little rainbow bracelet.
I think it was like $7. I wear this all the time. So, yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad, kind of hand them out. Yeah, that's actually kind of a cute idea. Everyone likes
cute.
Way to go, you.
Funny.
Okay. So the last thing is just generalized to the whole audience that's out there. Any last messages, and if they wanted to contact you and reach out, and like, how could they reach out to you?
Well, I can be found on Facebook as Ryan Rutar, or I can be found under Pearly White Prevention. Pearly whites is in your teeth, not as a racial thing, because we've gotten comments.
Oh my!
So, I know, right? Like, who thinks of that? But anyway. So, pearlywhiteprevention.com. Both Aaron and I's emails are on there. And like I said, we can always have discussions on how to add yourself to, an LGBT friendly website in order for people to know who you are, or that you're, a positive server for the community, all that jazz. And I just appreciate that you guys have given us space to even talk and let other people know what's going on. So I thank you.
I can be found on Facebook as well, Jen Kopp. It's KOPP. And then if you want to put my email in the show notes, you totally can. And then there's a couple Facebook groups that I'm in and Ryan.
Oh yeah.
To RDH LGBTQ plus, and then I think there's like LGBTQ plus dental professionals. There's not a lot of us on there, and you don't have to. There's a lot of allies, I think, in there more than folks that are out, and that's totally fine. Just we post things, just positive things in there. I know some people have posted about questions about their kids or nieces and nephews going through their coming out process and just asking questions. It's a safe space. Just if you don't know, ask. Come with an open heart and open mind, and the right people will give you the information you need. If you come like, well, this is wrong, you're going to hell, you're going to be met with opposition. So come with open mind, ask questions. At the end of the day, you can believe what you want, but if your patient is in the chair and they're LGBTQ, you need to be treating them with respect. And your colleagues, we ask the same, because we're going to give it to you, regardless of what your beliefs are. We're going to give it to you. So, that's all.
Respect, that is.
Yeah.
Perfect way to end that. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that was good. Hey, well, thank you both for being on. I really appreciate it. I know this is early in the morning for you both, and I'm very thankful. So
awesome. You're welcome.
Thank you guys and I learned a lot from you. I feel like I've got a ton more to learn, but this has kind of motivated me to learn more. So I really appreciate both of you.
Awesome. You're welcome.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.